Hello, my name is Kira, and oh boy, was this interesting to write. Disclaimer, obviously, this is just my opinion. I try to back it up with evidence and examples, but in the end, you're welcome to disagree. My argument is that Isha was a plot device who overstayed her welcome, and it would have been better for the show to diminish her role in season 2. Roadmap. Why I think Isha was a plot device character, how that harmed the show, specifically Jinx, and how the problem could have been solved, because I don't like critiquing without offering some sort of example of how I would have gone about it, because that's just bashing without some sort of solution, in my opinion. So how was Isha a plot device? Plot devices, just a refresher, are really common, useful things that are used to push a story along, and most stories do use them at some point or another. These can include flashbacks, a little bit of Deus Ex Machina, MacGuffins, red herrings. All of these can be implemented to just fit into a story and help keep it rolling. Sometimes characters are used as plot devices to start a certain plot line or interact with other characters to force them along their arc. And this is fine, it's normal, it's super common to have, especially when it's a minor character who, besides their basic purpose of influencing a small piece of the story, doesn't shape the narrative. However, a story can suffer from too many plot devices. Like a story with too many red herrings, it's hard to believe when the actual truth comes out. Excessive flashbacks to explain character behavior can make that character seem very clunky and irrational, and if the Deus Machina is a little too much, it can make the story seem cheap, like the heroes didn't actually earn anything. So, plot device characters. These characters, just by design, often don't experience much of an arc or any arc at all when it comes to their personal journey, and they also tend to be pretty isolated to the characters they are meant to progress, because the other characters in the story just don't need them. Isha is a plot device literally dropped into the story to help with Jinx's redemption arc. Because, of course, Jinx sacrificing herself at the end wouldn't have as much emotional weight if she hadn't become good, and it would be difficult for her to reconcile with Vi if she hadn't changed from the end of season 1. Giving a character someone else to look after is a very good way to get them on the path to redemption or give them development of some major sort, especially if this is an innocent child. A couple of examples of characters who end up looking after children who are not necessarily plot devices but do force development onto the adult character can be found in The Mandalorian, Leon the Professional, Logan, or even movies like Monsters Incorporated or Brother Bear. While I find the distribution tends to skew towards male characters somehow ending up with a kid, Ripley in Alien 2 is a good example of a woman taking in a young girl, and horror movies in general, like Halloween, Bird Box, and The Woman in Black 2, have children influence the adults' development, sometimes to urge them to fight and be brave, or outspoken in a way they weren't before, or sometimes to accept emotions that they didn't want to deal with previously. So Jinx is not alone in having her character development pushed along by the presence of a kid. Isha's existence alone is not a sin from the Arcane writers. It's simply that she's used too much, which I'm going to get to now. So we hit season 2 of Arcane. Jinx has just held her messed up little tea party and gunned down Silco in its display of her full psychosis, and blown up the council as they were voting to give Zahn independence, though to be fair to her, she didn't know about that. However, it's still something that has consequences for the rest of the show, and affects other characters we care about. If the council had been able to grant Zahn independence, everything would be different, and it's Jinx's fault. So Jinx is a wanted woman and has left herself with absolutely nothing. She has no real motivation, no relationship with Vi, no reason to keep going, and is clearly lost as we watch other characters deal with the grief and trauma caused by her actions. So, in order to redeem this character, as the show always clearly meant to do, what needs to happen? I would personally argue that the main thing is Jinx taking responsibility for her own actions. She cannot continue wantonly hurting people and never recognizing that there are consequences, and maybe she's going to be one of the ones who experiences them. Silco, unfortunately, never really dealt with Jinx going off script, even when people got hurt, praising her as perfect even when she was clearly suffering a mental break. So it's been years since Jinx actually had to cope with fallout. This is actually demonstrated perfectly with the way she has such a difficult time letting go of Silco, though she tries repeatedly. If Jinx develops in Season 2 and is able to take responsibility for what she does, she will be more likely to be careful about what she does and not alienate those willing to accept her through her own brash actions. This would allow her to mend bridges with characters like Vi and Echo and even change for the better so her actions have positive consequences. At the same time, I think it's true most of the audience wanted a return of the character of Jinx, the chaotic, playful Lee character who translated that nature into the show with leaving her monkey head drawings as a signature everywhere she caused terror, by making Vi think she was about to reveal Kate's head on a platter, who messed around in her little hideaway with buggy goggles and markers to decorate her explosives, who was just a little more playful and happy if unhinged. I mean, let's not forget the hype when she appeared during the final fight of Season 2, riding that hot air balloon, swaggy new hoodie, color bombing everywhere with music blaring, just chaos incarnate. That was not where Jinx was at the beginning of Season 2. But hey, release the child. From the onset, we know that Isha is a scrappy Undercity kid who can look after herself like 95% of the time. She doesn't speak, and she gains an almost immediate attachment to Jinx. She is playful, as shown by imitating Jinx's sillier moments. However, if I try to think of ways that Isha changes as a character before her untimely death, it would be simply more of an attachment to Jinx, to the point of being willing to sacrifice herself to take out Vander. The only thing she does when not attached to Jinx's hip are things that force Jinx into the story, just like a plot device is meant to do. But when she is attached to Jinx's hip, she is facilitating Jinx's character development while not receiving any of her own. Which, is fine to have character plot devices who don't have their own arc. My issue with Isha, again, is she is used too much, to the point that Jinx's development relies almost solely upon Isha's presence. By Jinx's own admission, Isha changes everything, like putting on glasses. Having a child she is protecting not only gives Jinx a reason to live, but we see her doing goofy sort of childish things again, like the creation of Savika's arm and the infamous pshh, or popping luminous mushrooms in her mouth. There's also the bug fights, the hair dyeing, the talking about powder again, despite Jinx insisting that powder is long gone. She begins to think more about the consequences of her actions, like if Isha is about to be hurt by something, Jinx is involved in. Isha is never part of a plan to attack when that plan is made by Jinx. At most, she fetches things or stays hidden to set off a bomb at the right time or be a lookout. Completely incapable of doing the sort of damage Powder did by not having direction yet still wanting to be involved. In a way, Jinx gives Isha the life she wanted as Powder, one that is isolated from the reality of Zaun, and even allows her to copy her own physical appearance, like Jinx herself is getting a second chance through her. Nothing is expected of Isha except to be a kid, and if Isha is involved in fights or showdowns, Jinx guides her in a way that Powder could have benefited from someone telling her, "Don't send in the monkey," allowing Isha to be involved like Powder once wanted to help, but in a way that is guided so no one gets hurt. So we see Jinx take responsibility, we see her start to make better decisions, and we see her regain that playful part of her personality that the beginning of the season was devoid of. Now, I'm not going to forget about Savika. Savika is basically the only other character who has a true influence on Jinx in this time period, as Vi and Caitlyn simply continue the antagonistic relationship that they left with in Season 1. Jinx remakes Savika's prosthetic arm, and is out of the desire to create, not destroy, which is so good for her character arc, to show that she wants to have positive consequences for her actions, wants to build bridges with people she historically does not get along with, and she makes it this goofy, jinxy arm that plays music and is a literal lottery as to how you're going to attack. However, Savika's influence on Jinx gets overshadowed by Isha. It's Isha who pretends to be Jinx and is a symbol to the Jinxer movement. When Isha is imprisoned, that is what forces Jinx out of hiding. Not Savika telling her what a symbol she has become, not the fact that Jinx has this whole movement riding on her shoulders, but that Isha was captured. This is classic plot device. There were other reasons that Jinx could have chosen to come out of hiding, that she could have chosen to take responsibility. But in the end, what matters is Isha. And that's where the problem lies. Too often, it's all about Isha. Isha leads where Jinx will go, both emotionally and physically, until she reaches the end of her usefulness and gets killed off because plot devices are not necessary to the story once they have served their purpose. I actually get a little ticked off about this because they use Isha to get sad points from the audience by killing a child. Isha led Jinx to reuniting with Vander, which led to Jinx reuniting with Vi, which got her to the commune, where she would end up being arrested, and there was no place for Isha anymore. So instead of letting Isha live, they killed her in a heartbreaking way so that Jinx would have emotional fallout. And if there's proof that Isha was a plot device, it's that literally nobody except for Jinx is shown to mourn Isha's death. Not Vi, Savika might not even know about it, it's just Jinx because Isha was her plot device and her death furthers Jinx's emotional development. Honestly, I think it's kind of like Heimerdinger. I'm not sure that the writers knew what to do with him for the final battle, and it would have felt weird sidelining him, so it was just easier to bloop him out of existence. I'm not sure what Isha would have done in the final battle because it would undo Jinx's character development to purposely put her in danger. So it was easier to kill her and get to Jinx attempting suicide because of the emotions she experiences due to Isha's death and the fact Jinx failed in her responsibility to keep Isha safe. But if they hadn't killed her off, would Isha have fought Vander? That's not her dad. She may roll with the family for a bit, but ultimately has no emotional stakes besides the ones she has in Jinx, as proven by the memories she has right before blowing herself up. Which, again, just illustrate how Isha's main characterization was little girl devoted to Jinx. Everything about her is Jinx. It might be in beautiful watercolor with a lovely song, but it shows us exactly why Isha existed, to be paired with Jinx and nothing else. So, Isha was a plot device. She drops into the story, causes character development for Jinx, is the thing that gets Jinx to accept her role in Zaun's narrative, and then kablooms herself away when she no longer would have served the story. Isha lived so much in Jinx's shadow that Jinx is the only one who cares that she dies, and then the show uses that caring for Jinx's character arc and gets her fully redeemed, as it is her grief that makes her want to break the cycle by dying. But then Echo sticks around and we can assume convinces Jinx that she wants to be part of the fight, that she would prefer the consequences of having done something to help save the ones she loves, rather than killing herself and not being able to save anyone. And she does save people. Jinx dies a hero. Jinx dies redeemed. Take Isha out of this, though, and there's practically nothing. Because without Isha, Zavika would have been the only character Jinx had actual development with, because Isha drove everything else along. She is the glasses that change the way Jinx sees the world, and no true character should be reduced to glasses. And no plot device should be so necessary to a character's development that they are the reason there's any significant change at all. They can be a driving force, but they should not be so much of a force that everything rides on their presence. Which is just a shame, because Arcane is filled with interesting characters who were already introduced and developed in Season 1, who could have interacted with Jinx and helped her develop. And this is why I think Isha harmed the show, because Jinx had Isha. She existed in this little bubble that didn't require branching out, but as a main character, having meaningful relationships with many other characters would have strengthened the show through building these other bonds, and her already existing relationships could have had more focus. Take Vi and how Isha harms that relationship instead of strengthening it. Obviously, Jinx and Isha play a sisterly role with each other. But to take that relationship and compare it to Vi and Jinx is just plain insulting. First of all, Isha's relationship to Jinx isn't healthy because she is a plot device entirely devoted to her. Her personality is devotion to Jinx. Powder was never a plot device to Vi. So Vi should not be looking at Isha and Jinx and going, oh fuck, that's why we're not sisters anymore. Because Powder was never like that. So that's butchering the complexity of Vi and Jinx's relationship, the separations and misunderstandings and nearly killings and mercy shown. We are not looking at a could have been or what once was, because Isha simply isn't complex enough. Yet in the search for Vander, Vi sees this new side of Jinx as a sister to Isha, this no longer a complete psycho side, which is what allows Vi to basically extend the let's be family again invitation, instead of the sisters actually having meaningful conversation where they address the issues between them, how they overcome the cracks in their relationship and take accountability for the ones they caused. It should have been conversation that needed to happen, and yet because it feels like Jinx's character arc was driven so much by Isha, any reconciliation with Vi doesn't matter as much, because Vi doesn't actually contribute to Jinx's growth in any significant way. I think this is why Jinx's pain over losing Isha actually eclipses Vi's pain over losing Jinx for a lot of reactions I've seen from viewers. And for a show supposed to be about the sisters, that's not good. I solidly believe that the show would have had much stronger writing if the writers had not been leaning on the idea of plot devices so hard. It would have forced more nuanced, complicated relationships, and also required characters to pop their bubbles and interact in new and interesting ways that the use of plot devices allowed them to avoid. Do I think that this makes them bad writers? No. Plot devices are common things that get used all the time. They got used in Season 1. Other plot devices besides Isha were used in Season 2 just fine, but I do believe they got hung up on Isha and were unable to let her go. I do not hate Isha, but I hate that she took the place of other characters and other reasons for Jinx to develop. Now, because I don't like critique without offering my own personal solution, given the chance to look over the script, I would not have gotten rid of Isha, because she did do some great things for Jinx in terms of development. I would have probably tried to incorporate Savika a little bit more, or even had Echo run into Jinx early in the season so that their next meeting was not literally the one after Echo nearly killed Jinx on the bridge, and then he's trying to prevent her from killing herself in a way that probably seemed a little odd to Jinx. But she could still run into Isha in Act 1, have that fun side brought out of her, see Powder in this young girl, become very protective of Isha, and still be brought to Stillwater. We see Savika take Isha away. Yet we never learn how Jinx met up with Savika again, how she got Vander back to Zaun, why she and Savika never spoke again for the rest of the season. There's a lot in that period that is unknown. Savika knew Vander. She's also practical, and Jinx wants to keep Isha safe. I think it would have been perfectly within reason for Jinx to meet back up with Savika and Isha, of course, have to tell Savika the truth about Vander. And then Savika helps her make the decision that Isha would be safer to not follow Jinx if she means to go after Vander again. Get Vi involved, hell. Tell Jinx that Vi is out making a mess of herself, because I'm sure Savika was aware of that. But don't involve the actual child in a conflict that isn't hers. She and Jinx can still have a really moving goodbye, can still mean a lot to each other, but this does, A, allow Jinx to repair her relationship with Vi without her plot device right there by her side, causing her to act differently. B, would not lead to Isha sacrificing herself for what I believe were mostly sad points, and because she no longer served the narrative. C, would force Jinx to have multiple relationships to make up for the way Isha's no longer around, and would ultimately strengthen the story. And D, they could have had Isha show up again in the last episode, benefiting from the way society has changed. And holy hell, how cool would it be to show a little girl with dyed blue hair clambering up onto a roof and watching an airship fly away? Also, I think Savika could have suggested Isha go down to be with the Firelights to be safe. And if Jinx had taken her down there and actually seen the painting of herself, like to contrast with the paintings of herself as revolutionary, it would have been so good. It would have been so good for her to see how people mourned the loss of Powder, even as she continued as Jinx. Anyway, just moving forward, there are a lot of people Jinx could have had some really great exchanges with that would have facilitated her development. I think her conversation with Caitlyn is already top-notch, both of them being brutally honest. I think that her learning about Silco's deal from Jace could have been a way for her to gain closure in that area, learning how much he was willing to sacrifice for her sake. More conversation with Vi, of course, could really jump off that whole trust idea, maybe get into the night they were initially separated and open old wounds to stitch them back together the right way. I'll be honest, I would have killed for Victor and Jinx to actually talk because they already had a relationship. They organically pushed each other along without ever meeting. Powder explodes Jace's apartment. Victor ends up partnering with Jace for Hextech. Victor and Jace create the gemstones. Jinx ends up stealing one. Victor dismantles Jinx's bomb and is made to consider whether the mind behind it would be capable of utilizing the gemstone. She is. She uses it to explode the council and blow Victor up, who is then fused with the hex core and becomes the fortune cookie she eventually meets. Plus, both are sort of the unhinged scientist trope with no regard for their own safety, and funnily enough, both are given Shimmer by Singed in order to save their lives. So instead of a singular snarky exchange, these two actually have a solid foundation for an interesting relationship of equals. One that could have involved Jinx looking at the result of her actions right in the eye in a way the story needs her to, and would do so later by killing Isha, but it could have done with Victor in a much less blatant way because, yes, killing a kid is blatant. And yet, for all she was already set up to have that relationship, it never actually happened. That's just an example of how Jinx could have been linked with an existing character to get some really nice development that wouldn't involve Isha at all. And again, I don't hate Isha. Don't think I'm sitting there going, oh my god, I hate this child. I'm sitting there going, oh my god, what a cutie. But upon reflecting on the season as a whole, I guess I would have asked for Isha to have a much reduced role. So she could still be a plot device character, still be a cutie, still kick Jinx into action, still be present, but Jinx would have to rely on other developed characters to finish her own story, and the writers wouldn't have sacrificed a child for automatic sad points it would bring from the audience, and ability to get rid of a character who didn't really fit into Act 3. So, yeah, I would basically just expect more from the writers because they delivered so hard on Season 1, and it seems crazy to me that they couldn't up the game for Season 2. Like, I know Noxus had to be a thing, blah, 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 lots of factors, but knowing exactly when and how to use plot devices, that's pro writing. And the writers of Arcane have proven that they are aces. So what happened? I do think if we'd had a version of the season that came out, and a season that didn't use Isha as 90% of Jinx's personal growth, anyone would have been able to see the difference in quality. And we still would have had a cute kid who just also had Jinx reaching beyond a tiny little sphere to be able to see her impact on the world instead of just looking through glasses. Anywho, that's my spiel. I don't want to make it too long. Thanks for listening. If you feel like hitting that like button, it takes you a second, it means the world to me, or hello if you want to subscribe. Small channel's still growing, everything helps. Tell me in the comments things that didn't feel quite right to you in Season 2 if you'd like me to make a video about that. I really love having civilized conversations about this stuff. If you just want to call me stupid, then, I prefer you not. But again, my name is Kira. I hope you're doing well wherever and whenever you are, and I'll see you soon. Bye.